feeling stressed at work? Do you think you might be experiencing symptoms of burnout? Well, burnout is a really big problem in Australia at the moment. And today we will learn what it is, how to recognize it, how to help prevent it, and what to do if you are experiencing it. Today's guest is Vanita Smith, a health and wellbeing strategist, facilitator, and coach, dedicated to helping us feel more human in business and healthcare so that we can support our health and well-being and prevent burnout. With over 25 years of experience, she has worked with thousands of individual clients and organisations to address their diverse health and business needs. She has a passion and lifelong curiosity about human behaviour, physiology and health, and it's played a crucial role in her career and her journey back from burnout and significant health challenges nearly 5 years ago. Vanita is now focused on enhancing the health and well-being of purpose-driven professionals, and she collaborates with organisations and healthcare professionals to help prevent burnout. So welcome to the Wellness Nurse podcast, Vanita.
Hi, Ros. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm so excited about our discussion today. So let's get started. So I was shocked to see that Australia has one of the highest rates of burnout in the world, and it's estimated to cost the Australian economy $14 billion a year. Can you tell us what burnout is and what is contributing to it, and why is it on the rise in Australia?
Yeah, thanks, Ros. Yes, it is an area that is increasing, and we have varying degrees of exhaustion and burnout and people feeling stressed, and it's something that we're acknowledging more and more. If you actually look at the definition of burnout for the World Health Organization, it's described as an occupational phenomenon. So it's not actually a medical condition, but it's a result that has resulted from chronic workplace stress not being successfully managed. And it has three dimensions that it looks at. Is you have energy depletion, you're feeling exhausted. You have more cynicism, you start to detach from your work. And you have a reduced level of efficacy that, you're making a difference with what you're doing. So as said, many people are experiencing the exhaustion component, and with burnout, one of the things I learned from someone that's also researched in the space is there's varying degrees of burnout. There's like a first degree burnout is where you have that level of exhaustion, but you have the tools and resources to replenish your energy. And then the second degree is where it starts to become chronic. It becomes unrelenting, and that has a high metabolic load on your system and physiology. And then third degree burnout is when you sort of reach that point where it no longer you feel that you're making that difference. Your physiology might just prevent you, like you're just not feeling like you can move. Getting out of bed becomes hard. It might manifest as actual physical and mental health issues. With it, that can be a turning point of wanting where do I want to make a difference. So I think the real key is understanding where you are in that journey, and then what tools and support can you get to help you in that space.
Cynicism is one of those stages. Can you talk more about that?
So one of the things I've learned is that what correlates to those three dimensions I talked about is there's a theory in coaching psychology. It's known as the self-determination theory. And it's all about what intrinsically motivates us. And those things are our level of efficacy, our relatedness, how we relate to others, what's our role, our meaning in what we're doing, and what sense of autonomy we have. And when we start to lose that, cynicism comes in. So that feeling of exhaustion, because that intrinsic motivation is slowly being depleted. So it makes sense, and it did to me, that cynicism because, I'm no longer making a difference. It's, I'm not getting support. That will start to manifest when you start to lose that intrinsic motivation.
Are there any industries in Australia that are experiencing higher levels of burnout than others?
Yeah, certainly seeing it in those sort of service, purpose-driven industries. So things like healthcare, as we know, certainly we're seeing increase in that area. Areas like the police force, teaching, where people have probably gone into those roles with a high sense of purpose and wanting to help others, they tend to be the ones that have a higher risk of burnout.
And can you walk us through the early signs of burnout? What are the warning signs that people might overlook? And how does a person usually progress from these early stages to actual burnout?
Yeah, it might be that when you go on holidays, you struggle to switch off. Is like you said, you start to feel a little bit cynical about things, at indifference. It might actually start to manifest in health issues, or you might start getting biomarkers back from your blood tests that are showing health indications. That might be another thing, or it could be you're getting body signals, because so many of us are trained to push our bodies beyond the signals that's telling us that it's struggling. Push through more mentality can only be sustained for a period till our physiology can't keep up with it. So just tuning into it, and that's where mindfulness, awareness, looking at those markers, that are you noticing to stay struggle in the present moment, could all start to be indicators that you're pushing those limits with your energy levels.
So, as you know, I am passionate about preventive healthcare. So, whose responsibility is it then to prevent burnout?
Yeah, look, when I first burnt out, I thought it was my responsibility. I was just like, what did I do? How come everyone else can be okay? But learning that, as we both familiar with the biopsychosocial model in healthcare, very much in a workplace, it is as much about our own physiology, our social connections, and the environments that we work in. That definitely our workplaces that play a huge role in that. That tide is changing. Things like the ISO 45003 legislation that's come out, risk management system, and the recent legislation that's come out around psychosocial risk, it is starting to put an emphasis back on organisations to help provide places where we can thrive and not burn out.
So, there's legislation around what workplaces are required to do for their employees in terms of their psychosocial support?
Yeah, psychosocial risk. So it's looking at things that potentially can impact employees' wellbeing, and that's looking at things like their level of autonomy, the role responsibility. There's multiple factors that you can look at, and burnout is a risk that is one component of that framework to assess and what things can you do to mitigate risk.
I've heard that some organisations are training up mental health first aiders. I was really excited when I saw that this is to support employee wellbeing. Can you point to some resources for employers and organisations to help support their staff?
Look, first I'm going to say mental health first aid training, having done it, is a fantastic tool to help support having those compassionate conversations with your team members. In terms of tools and support, I think there is a lot more tools and support that is coming in, and there is a lot of organisations that do want to do the right thing by their teams. What the feedback that I've heard from a lot of people is that in some ways they got inundated with it in the last few years, but then they struggle to actually implement that into the everyday. And so I think that's the opportunity for organisations in the evolution around wellbeing in the workplace is, how do I make this work in the everyday and not see wellbeing as an activity that I do separately? And some of it may be outside the workplace, but even within the workplace, what are things that we can do to help ensure that the wellbeing of the team, which means they're more engaged, they're more innovative, they're more curious, they're more creative in their workplace roles.
And what would it look like for, say, a small business or a medium-sized organisation to implement those strategies? Is it a short course that the employees sort of work through on their own, or in a group setting? What does it commonly look like?
Yeah, look, I think it looks different for every organisation. It's really stepping back and looking at what's happening, looking at what the needs are of the organisation, looking at what the strengths are of the organisation, and then where are the opportunities that they can explore within the frameworks, tools, and resources that they have to help support their employees. So very much, I think it's individualised. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution for every organisation.
I guess I'm wondering if if a small organisation was interested in taking some first steps, perhaps they haven't before and they don't really know where to start. They know it's a requirement for their organisation, but would there be some government or free resources that might be available to them?
Yeah, there certainly is. There is support, I know, in some of the state-based. I'd say, for example, here in New South Wales, they've got tools around mental health support that's free for small businesses. There is also, mental health organisations that may have wellbeing programs that can support. Again, it just really, I think, depends on where you assess the need is and the opportunity, but certainly there are resources out there that can help support.
Taking annual leave is important for rest and recovery. How can both employees and employers ensure that leave is used effectively rather than as a reactive measure to burnout?
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, look, certainly a holiday that you might, when you're already being pushed and going on a holiday where you have a lot of travel and things, it may not be the best solution at the time. But I think the main thing, actually, the antidote to burnout is actually energy management. So it's how, as a collaboration, is how are you managing your energy levels during the day? How are you managing your energy levels over the week? How are you managing it over a period of time, and it might be a year? And then within that, holidays become part of that energy management. So that, yeah, you can refresh, you've got that ability to recover, or it might be just time during the day that you get out from there. Maybe your role might be that you're quite reactive during the day. So maybe it's, where's the periods that you can get out that you can just down regulate. So again, it's just that collaboration, exploring, getting curious and seeing where you can help support each other.
Are you able to provide an example of either an individual or an organisation that is doing it well, like where people do manage their energy levels across the day well, and where there's clear strategies that are in place and where people feel supported? Are you able to paint a picture of what that actually looks like, where staff are managing their energy levels well during the day and during the year?
Yeah, look, I think that's one thing that COVID did give people the opportunity to explore, was not working in a typical office environment, being at home. That gave people space they may use that to do the deep work. They may be using space out that's not at home, or, going to a co-working space where they can do different work. So I think, yeah, there's lots of experimenting that people have been doing over the last few years, and that just through the necessity of keeping business happening, people were willing to explore and experiment and see what worked. And look, there's this one client I worked with during COVID that always stuck with me, because he was actually, it was really, was looking out for his staff and wanting to make sure they were okay. But at the same time, having the conversations that he was just smashed at the end of the week. He was literally on the bed, exhausted, and he just was willing to sort of explore, and he recognised he wasn't eating properly. He actually just then experimented, and we looked at what, times he enjoyed food. He experimented, and actually it came down to he didn't like shopping. So he then explored things like HelloFresh as a solution to have food in the fridge. So when he came home, that whole cognitive load of trying to work out what to eat, he had something in the fridge. He recognised he loves social connection, so he would FaceTime his sister while they were preparing each other's food so they could chat. So he loved having that social connection. He also then recognised that he really wanted to aspire the team as a leader, and recognised that actually the lunchtime breaks were a great opportunity to sit with the team and not be seen as a leader that was just working 24/7. That gave them permission to just, have time to down regulate and eat properly. Just through that sort of slow, curiosity, exploring, there was a multitude of solutions that he came up with to help his own energy and then to help his own team.
That's so good. And I think when staff see their leader or their boss taking lunch breaks, they know that it's okay for them to. It's such a toxic environment when people are all eating at their desk and it's seen as you're goofing off or you're not giving it your all. If you actually go out and to the tea room or outside and eat your lunch, because the really committed ones are at their desk, they don't stop. I think modeling that as a leader is critical. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's such a practical example. In terms of mental health, this self-care encompasses physical and emotional and mental well-being. How is it possible for people to incorporate that self-care where they're right in the midst of juggling it all? They're juggling the work and the family commitments and maybe aging parents as well. There's a lot of things to factor in. How do we do
for
it?
sure. And look, I have to be, self-care was a word a few years ago that used to just put the hairs on my back. I was, I'd hear the, put the oxygen mask down, and yeah. And I just, was inbuilt. I had to make sure everyone else was okay. And I think one of the really first hard lessons I had through this was actually how unconsciously unrelenting I was on myself, and that, unconscious drive and how I pushed myself, and then thinking going off for a massage or whatever was the antidote to that. What it taught me was, and learning the power of just compassion to myself, which it took a while to, with it, and to recognize that when something was hard and challenging, that, hey, it's okay, I recognize that these things are happening, what's here. And that one of the things I learned a long time ago in business was things I can control and what I can't control. And compassion to me was that missing component is, yes, there are things I can control and there's things I can't. And that's hard. And that's where that compassion of recognizing it and saying, okay, with that, these are the things I can do. And so, that took time, and it's become more innate. And definitely it's had a huge impact on my physiology and the emotional and the psychological, because it's engaging a different part of my system. It's not, whereas before it was, unconsciously ramping up my nervous system every time I was being so unrelenting, to when it was difficult situations. So, self-care has been an interesting one for me to really learn and apply.
You talk about the impacts on your physiology when you're taking self-care for yourself. What sort of physiological biomarkers are changing when you look after yourself?
Yeah, so there's research that actually shows that even there is a difference between empathy and compassion in the brain. So we'll empathize and connect with someone, and that is one part of the brain. But compassion brings it into, I see that you're suffering, and how can I help you on that journey? And that actually creates a different physiological state that allows you to witness someone's story and how can you help them. Whereas before it was recognizing and empathizing with them that they were struggling, and they just wanted to step in and help, and just say, okay, holding that space for someone, has had a huge impact on me and been a valuable tool to help me as a coach with people, and then witnessing what's happening with them and then helping them, work out the best plan for them.
That holding space for people's emotions, and when those emotions are very heavy or intense, there is an art in that. And I think a lot of people are uncomfortable holding space for people because it's very uncomfortable actually. And we don't necessarily have the skills to accommodate people, especially I think people in the healthcare profession, not especially, but including people in that profession. We do want to fix, we want to make better. And we want to make better as quickly as we can often, but holding that space is so important for that person to move through those emotions more quickly than they would otherwise. Have you got any tips on how we can hold space for people?
Yeah, just listening to the story and just A tool that I learnt with health coaching was reflective listening. Is actually, I hear you're saying this is difficult, and that in a sense you're co-regulating with the person, and giving them that sense that yes, it's their emotion they're experiencing, and then it gives them the chance to unpack, and like I said, then for them to work through that difficult emotion. So I think, just rather than to jump, and some of this can be so automatic for us, is to want to jump in or we'll share our own story to relate, but just holding that space to listen, say, I hear the difficulty in what you're saying, and that conversation to then work through to the next steps.
It's terrific. Have you got 5 quick tips on creating a positive work culture?
No quick tips.
It's not that easy.
I think for me, what I've learned is when I lean into 3 values around curiosity, courage, and compassion, and I don't always get them right, but the more I lean into those, it just align my behaviours to that. You get that, it just renews your energy. You get that sense of play. You can bring that safe space for people to explore and experiment and, create that culture that, where you want to be.
For those people that are diagnosed with burnout, what does treatment and the road to recovery look like?
Yeah, as I said earlier, it's not actually a diagnosed medical condition, but certainly healthcare professionals will see it as various manifestations of physical and mental health issues. And absolutely, that's where you do need support of your healthcare professional, and I really encourage it. But then there could be other things there to explore where you want to make change, and that's where things like health coaching may help support it. But definitely, if you are experiencing those health issues, as well as that feeling the exhausted things, is definitely check it out, because it could be where you need some more further support.
Do you have a program that you offer, Vanita, or what approach do you take with clients?
Yeah, look, I just offer the opportunity, I call it like a strategy session. It's the chance to unpack with people. And then from that, it's that chance for them to sort of reflect and explore where they're wanting to make change. Some of it actually might be that because they've been so sympathetically activated for so long, that tired but wired, it might actually be helping them with somatic practices to actually slow down with it. And that's one of the things I found, even after I was burnt out and I had stopped working, I still had this I could not switch off, and I struggled to do things like meditation and that slowing down. So just things that those neural exercises and somatic practices to help slow down may be one way that it could help someone, depending on where they're at, and that support. And then from that, they can then start to look at areas they want to explore change.
Can I ask what neural practices or somatic practices are?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked. So it's actually listening to body signals you're getting, and then from that, actually not just meditating, say, with thoughts. It's actually, what is my breath? Rather than going straight into, say, a breathing exercise, you're actually noticing where your breath rate actually is, because that will actually give you valuable insight as to where you are. When we're sort of in that high sympathetic state for a long time, that can become chronic. And so what the exercises are doing is just helping you to down-regulate and then up-regulate your energy, so that you are better knowing when and where to use the tools. So, and then somatic is just, that's awareness of your body, because so many of us actually are in our heads. I call it like am particularly driven. I call it the cauliflower C-suite. We're up there, but we're not really feeling the body a lot of the time, or we're ignoring those signals. So, just helping us to get back to what are those signals saying can provide us really valuable insights about where our physiology is.
Looking towards the future, are there any innovative approaches or emerging treatments for burnout? that show promise in both prevention and recovery?
Yeah, there is. There's lots of, and we're seeing lots of innovation with companies coming through. And one area that's actually got me quite curious is the use of things like the continuous glucose monitors and HRV monitors, because they can give us quite good objective data around our energy levels and our levels of stress on our bodies. So I think that how we could potentially use that as a way to monitor our levels of energy is going to be quite interesting over the next few years.
Just for the listeners, of course, HRV, what does that stand for?
Yeah, it's the heart rate variability.
Okay.
So when we have a low heart rate variability, it means that our body's in a more highly regulated state, whereas when it's a much higher number, it means that our ability to tolerate different stress levels is much better.
Is there anything else that you'd like to encourage the listeners with, I guess, in regards to burnout?
Yeah, look, it's the first to say is that, don't feel alone about it. I hope that this has actually sort of given you food for thought to explore where you might be in the stages of burnout, and that there are tools and support. Probably there are many tools you're actually using right now. A lot of people are using and exploring and experimenting with that it is helping with them. But that maybe there are other areas they haven't considered that could help support them to help bring feeling that energy again.
Mm. Well, I will link your website details to the show notes and your LinkedIn. If people would like to connect with you, I encourage them to do so.
Yeah, and that also recognising that the organisations that they work in, the workplace settings, also play a role in that, and where are they willing to explore change to help support people as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Vanita, for your time today. I know that will have encouraged a lot of people to know that they can recognise the early signs of burnout, and the varying stages of exhaustion and moving through those stages, and that they can get help at any point in that journey. So thank you so much, Vanita.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ros, for the opportunity today. I really appreciate it, and hopefully it's been of help for the people to get that support.
I'm sure it has. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you.